Good morning, everybody. My name is Lori Reynolds. I'm from Maryland, but I spent 35 years in the Marine Corps. So I'm fine. I retired in 2021, and I've been sitting on boards and doing a little bit of consulting. And Carol met me at an HLC conference, and here I am. Very compelling person. So that's me.
Mike.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Lettig. I work at a financial institution, Huntington National Bank. It's about a $280 billion organization. I've had a banking career that spanned 5 decades. I've been at Huntington for 2 years. What motivated me to stay in financial services, it's an alignment of the values of the company and what I'm attempting to do in terms of providing access to capital to a marketplace that I believe continues to be underserved, and that's Native America. So I've had an opportunity to begin to develop a business model that is user-friendly, that is tailored to the needs of the leadership of Indian country, so that they can access capital and financial solutions as they take on their responsibility of the inherent right to self-govern. So the inherent right to self-govern is a significant responsibility the tribal leaders have to ensure that they protect and continue to grow and thrive as they look out for the health, education, and welfare of their tribal members. And one of the critical components, one of the non-negotiables in being able to do that is to have economic independence. So economic independence is a cornerstone that creates the basis, a foundation under which tribal leaders can take on those responsibilities and do so with a little bit of a peace of mind. Indian country is in a fight 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to protect their inherent right to self-govern. And having a little bit of economic independence is something that can help along the way. So that's me.
Excellent. Thank you both. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank both of you for your military service. So let's give them a round.
2 Marines. It's good.
Marine Corps. Not 35 years, however. That's dedication.
So, Mike, something you said economic independence, which to me equates to financial freedom. You heard the definition at the top from the government organization that monitors financial health and well-being, but financial freedom means something and economic independence means something different to everyone. So I'll start with you, but I'd also like to get your thoughts, Lori. What does financial freedom mean to you?
Yeah, there's a continuum, I think, of the evolution to economic independence and financial freedom, and it doesn't start there, nor does it end there. Economic independence, financial freedom is a journey without a destination. You always have to continue to work on it, always have to find ways for broader inclusion. So if you take a look at any community, it has different levels of economic prosperity or economic struggle. And the ability to take the experience that individuals have in obtaining economic independence and economic freedom, which is basically I can do anything I want when I want and not have to worry about the financial situation that allows me to do that. The other end of the spectrum it starts with poverty, not necessarily living paycheck to paycheck. It may be no paycheck at all. So bridging that is, I think, the challenge that we have as a society to continue to build that. And there's an interesting dynamic, I think, that those in the world of the have and have-nots, the haves always aspire to do more for themselves. And I don't know if it's by design or default, but very seldom have take the time to invest in building the quality of life of the have-nots.
How about yourself, Lori?
Yeah, I think I like what Mike said about the journey, not the destination. I think the freedom part for me comes in not having to look at the price tag in the grocery store. I'm just going to get what I want because I know I can afford it. It's the freedom to choose, the freedom to do what you want to do when you want to do it, which is not the same as financial security, I think. So it takes a long time, though, and even in my story, it took me a very, very long time to get to the point where I could just kind of do the things I wanted to do with my life. So I think there is a time element here, Rodney, that especially for the students that hang in there, because it's not going to be overnight. It's a journey. It's an everyday thing. But one day you're going to wake up and go, I'm going to go buy that because I can. So I'm trying to encourage you because it is a different time. It is a different time. I bought a house as a second lieutenant in Carlsbad, California, and there's no way that a second lieutenant in Carlsbad, California could buy a house today. And so, to your point, times have changed. So we got to find new ways of starting on that journey, I think.
I want to pick up on what you just said, if you can continue, because you said times have changed. You bought your house as a second lieutenant, Carlsbad, California. Not possible today. So, and you heard the stats I said earlier about the American dream and homeowner and having kids. Is the American dream still intact or impossible to achieve and possible to achieve, or has it just been redefined?
So everybody is going to dream a different dream, right? I think, here's the story that came to mind when I was thinking about this question. One night, it was a birthday ball for Marines like us. Our birthday in November is a huge event. We have a ball every year, and we dress up, and we do so it was a birthday evening in Washington, D.C., and I jumped in an Uber on my way back to my apartment. And I'll never forget my Uber driver. His name was Lawrence. And he said, hey, where are you coming from all dressed up like that? And we started talking about the Marine Corps birthday. And he said, oh, thank you for your service. And I said, well, our country is worth serving for. You were worth my 35 years, the American people. And I said, but it's hard. Times are really challenging right now. This was in a few years back. And I said, I'm worried about our country. And he said, ma'am, don't you worry about America. He happened to be a reporter from a country in South America where freedom of the press is not a right. It's not a thing. He actually had to leave his family so that he could report and come to America and drive an Uber so that he could do his job with freedom to report about his country. He will never see his mother again because he can't go home. His name was Lawrence. I will never forget Lawrence. And he said, don't you worry. He said, I am living the American dream because I can do my job without threat of my family's security. So that's my answer to you. And I don't want to miss the point of this panel in what we're talking about financial freedom, but everybody has a different dream. I still believe that our country can provide a path to whatever that dream might be because our Constitution allows that. It's not people, it's the Constitution. And so is it, and I do worry, Rodney, I do. I think about the people I left behind in the service. Everywhere there are Marine Corps installations, Arlington, Virginia, San Diego, California, it's expensive. And we don't pay those rascals a lot of money, So I wonder how they're doing it. They're driving an hour and a half to get to work. That's not good for anybody. But anyway, long answer to a short question. I think the dream is changing, and I think it's different for everybody. And I still think our country is the only place that most dreams can happen.
I can't tell you how appreciative I am of you saying that, how the dream is changing, because one of the things, so I guess I never really introduced myself fully, but My personal story. Yes. So, I'll tell you my money story, my financial freedom story. So my first idea of how you build wealth came from the tooth fairy. Because I was 5 years old, lost my tooth. My older sister, 2 years older, said, "You got to put it under your pillow because you're going to get money. You're going to get money." So I got a whole dollar. Now, for those that are much younger, maybe that wasn't much, but back, I won't say the year, but it's a long time ago. That was a lot. And what it taught me, and by the way, I bought candy with that money, so therefore more teeth fell out, but got more money. But what I learned from that is that to get money, you had to give something physically of yourself. So in the early part of my life, I thought if I just work hard, I will just get money. And I thought money came from, also because of my upbringing, money and wealth came from having a higher salary. That's actually not how wealth is built in this country. Your salary helps because it facilitates the path to wealth. But something I often share is the average millionaire in this country, according to IRS data, has 7 financial income streams. They have a salary. They have dividends from their stocks. They get interest from their savings account, certificate of deposits, or bonds. They have capital gains from the stocks or bonds or assets that they've sold. They have business income. They have rental property income. And they have intellectual property income. Now, does that mean that if I don't have all 7, which I personally don't, I can't become a millionaire? Absolutely not. But what it showed me is that wealth has, to your point, many different paths. And this country affords you that opportunity to explore each and every one of those 7 paths. So, Mike, I'm curious to get some of your thoughts on what we're talking about right now, the American dream, building wealth, because you work with a financial institution, and you've worked for many years with financial institutions, helping Native American communities do just that.
It really is kind of interesting. I have a perspective that, based on the quality of life that we've been able to attain as a family, is different than some of my relatives that are on different Indian reservations, and a significant amount of what Indian country is dealing with in terms of high unemployment and the poverty rates, and the educational gaps that are there, the health care gaps that are there. Home ownership is a dream that some tribal members will never realize. There's a number of different challenges, not the least of which is being able to get financial institutions comfortable in lending on trust property without having the ability to have the safety net of repossession and selling those homes. But I think that there's an evolution that is very, very slow. It's moving at a glacial pace, where the improvement in those economies is starting to take light. And what is driving that is the commitment in a case of any community, but specifically in the tribal community. It's the commitment of leaders to say, I am not going to accept the conditions under which I have today. That is a starting point. I'm going to make a difference in the quality of life of my community and my tribal members. So what does that take? Roads, water, sewers, schools, healthcare facilities, being able to have access to community resources at some level of reliability, and that takes time. That takes a significant amount of time. If you take a look at any of the communities that are struggling economically, you can almost see those as you're driving by. If you see homes that are in disrepair, need of additional assistance, and you see individuals that have, just based on their appearance, you can tell that they have economic issues associated with how they're living day to day. Communities like that are receiving insights, and it's intellectual capital that will drive the change into what economic prosperity will start to look like. And where does that come from? It comes from folks like you. Your thoughts, your assessment of what your community is like and what you want it to be like are what's going to drive change.
Mike, I want to pick up on something you mentioned because it triggered something in my mind about systemic barriers, because you talked about lending and how financial institutions weren't lending within Native American communities. Are there any other systemic, and I also want to ask you, Lori, from the veterans community, any other systemic barriers that you see to building wealth within your respective communities? And more importantly, what can we do to address those barriers?
You know, as it relates to access to financial solutions, and capital obviously is one of those, but it's not the only one. It's really developing a continuum of processes that allow an individual to begin to invest in themselves at an early age. I want to begin with a savings account. I want to invest in my children and give them seed capital so that they've got a baseline from which they can continue to grow. I want to give them ideas on how to invest in themselves as opposed to going to consumable things that are disposable. How can they begin to select and choose a combination of those? I want to be able to enjoy my daily cup of coffee at Starbucks. At the same time, I want to be able to invest $3 to $5 a day so that I can begin to have some sort of wealth or a baseline of economic cushion, a safety net. The issues that I see in terms of developing the ease of access to financial solutions is not where it needs to be. The financial community can do a better job. We in the financial services solution area, we get a scorecard, and it's every quarter. That's when the investors take a look at your financial performance. So if you're looking at making long-range investments and strategic ideas and focus in investing in communities, difficult to do when your scorecard is every quarter, and that's how your stockholders are evaluating your performance. And I think there's an opportunity for different types of organizations to come together and develop what I call capital weaving, being able to take philanthropy, big financial institutions, communities, and develop thought processes on how they can deploy capital at a more rapid pace and make it easier. And there are organizations that I'm extremely impressed with. They're community development financial institutions, CDFIs is what they're called. And they quit waiting for financial institutions to solve problems. They just went and started doing it. And they're making investments in communities and the entrepreneur that doesn't have, I've got an idea, but I don't have an existing revenue stream. CDFIs are bringing those opportunities to light. And I think that financial institutions in the philanthropic community can come together and provide more of that raw material, which is the capital, to allow these folks to continue to do the great work that they're doing.
Yeah. Any thoughts?
Just one more systemic barrier, I think, because I was going to mention the CDFIs as well. I know, I sit on the board at U.S. Bank, and we spend a lot of time thinking about how to improve the communities that we're in and who can we partner with. And so I think if you're out there looking, like, how do I begin my financial journey? Be really thoughtful about what banks you're using, for what reason, and are they the ones that are going to support your journey? I think sometimes, Rodney, in some communities, language is a barrier to this as well. So people don't even, the right translators to be able to educate people to make the right decisions, and especially in the age of AI, where sometimes you can't even find a human to speak with, right? So that was just going to be my thought is as you are beginning your financial journey, do it like you would do, like, I don't know how you picked your college or how you picked any, but be thoughtful about it, be deliberate about it, make sure that it's going to meet your individual needs. And I think there really are some good tools out there. I think, sadly, I think, as you're watching TV and you see more commercials for betting apps than investment apps. If you got a betting app on your phone, delete it and don't ever, like, that is a waste of your money. Every time you think you want to bet $5 on a game, put $5 into an investment app and forget about it, right? That is going to take care of you in your future, So anyway, I worry about things like that, especially in people that just want a quick answer to a problem that is today. I get it, but that doesn't work, people. So.
Sounds like you were about to say something, Mike. Or okay, the betting apps. It reminded me of the World Economic Forum talks about how many young people today are experiencing financial nihilism because they don't feel the wealth building dream is accessible through traditional means. They are going through things like betting apps, the prediction markets, cryptocurrency. So I want to ask both of you. We have an audience. One of the things I do want to applaud the young people in the room. You're the most entrepreneurial generation ever. The most entrepreneurial generation ever. Many of you have, if you have a main job, you also have a side hustle. And the reason why you have a side hustle, according to the data, is because you want to build a business. So let's talk about entrepreneurship for a moment, especially in light of young people. For those young students here who are looking not only to enter the workplace, but to create their own workplace through entrepreneurship, any pieces of advice that either of you have for them?
Yeah, one of the things that I think about often is individuals that have ideas that can create a value proposition not only for them but for the community at large are oftentimes watered down by conventional wisdom. People are coming to you and saying, "Well, gee, that's a great idea, but it's never going to work." The beauty of individuals that are committed to a process and an idea they ignore that conventional wisdom. They ignore that. Taking risk is one of the most important ingredients in assessing whether or not you can be successful. Don't be afraid to take a risk. It's the evolution of the quality of life that we have as a society depends on you. It depends on you taking that risk. It depends on you going through the headwinds of doubt, because you'll encourage. I mean, you'll see those. They'll come up. Anyone who's got a great idea is going to have a significant amount of weeds growing in their yard because there are going to be a lot of people creating your doubt. Ignore that.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I got this knock on my door about 3 weeks ago, and these two kids from the College of Charleston are home for the summer. They're like, "Hey, we just started a business cleaning docks. You want your dock cleaned?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I want." We're like, "Yeah, like today, start." I mean, there's so creative. And then the other guy looks at my windows. He goes, "I'm going to start a window washing business. Would you like me to wash?" I'm like, "Yes, brother." I think there are plenty of people like me that would totally support energy and hard work and creativity. And even if it's something like that, right? Just start. You got something that you think you'd enjoy doing. You can make a buck doing it. The experience of creating your little business and all, you're going to bump into people like me that want to see you succeed, right? You will. And I believe that is true. Like, that is where your network starts. And anyway, so that's what I would say is, like, just start. You got an idea, go for it.
Excellent. And coincidentally, when we're talking about entrepreneurship, Richard Lewis has entered the building.
What I miss?
So, Richard, we're talking about entrepreneurship. Many young folks looking to start their own business. You've started several businesses. Want to know, what was your impetus for starting your business? What problems were you looking to solve? How did you go about that?
You're absolutely right. When you an entrepreneur, when you work for a company, the company's already figured out what problem they're trying to solve, and you're part of that solution. As an entrepreneur, you can have a great idea to start a business, but if it doesn't solve a problem, you're not quite there yet. So that is the impetus for when you want to start a business. Not only is it a great idea, it's a better way to, to make a hamburger or whatever it is, but what problem does it solve? My situation specifically, the first business I started was an IT company 24 years ago, and the problem I was trying to solve was I had just been laid off. I needed a job. I needed to find a way to make money, so I was solving my own problem. But in the reality is, in the back of my mind, I always knew I wanted to start a business. I'd received an MBA. After graduating from the Air Force Academy, I spent 10 years in the Air Force as an IT person, and then worked for some big companies.
Another veteran.
Yeah. Go Air Force. And I was laid off twice in a 2-year period, and after the second time, I had an epiphany. It was, when you work for a company, and this is my experience, it doesn't necessarily have to be yours, but when you work for a company, it's a decision, it's a deal with your employer. I will abide by all of your rules. I will do everything according to the way you say to do it in exchange for consistency, stability, and a regular paycheck. It's an agreement. But after being laid off twice in a 2-year period, I felt like I can be unstable by myself. This agreement is not working out. This is not very stable. I can be unstable by myself and make all my own rules. And so that's what I did. I started an IT company. That was in 2002, and we can go into it. But that was the impetus to start my first business. We can talk about some of the later businesses, though, if you like.
I have one more. We're going to be turning it over to the audience in a moment, but I have one more question. It's often said when it comes to building economic mobility, financial freedom, it's not necessarily what you know, but it's who you know. I believe it's both what you know and who you know. But how do you get into those rooms? How do you build those success networks? I'll throw it out to anyone who wants to start, but I'd like to hear from each of you on that. Rich, I'll start with you.
I 100% agree with you. It's not. There are a lot of expressions like that, and it's not an either or. It's not. Yes, who you know, what you know. It's definitely what you know, and who you know can definitely help you. Not only help you get started, but help you organize what you know into a viable business, into a solution that works. I mean, there's another one: work smarter, not harder. I'm like, you're always going to work hard. Being an entrepreneur, for example, I've joked about this before, but everyone says I want to be, I want freedom. I want to have my own hours, pick my own hours. I want to be, entrepreneur, not responsible to anybody. Yeah, as an entrepreneur, I get to pick which 17 hours a day I want to work. It's completely. You're always going to work hard. So just if you're not working hard, you're doing it wrong. There may be some things you can do to make it easier or easier than people expect. But if anything worthwhile in life is going to be hard work.
How about you, Lori? I mean, one of the things I've heard from veterans is that challenge of expanding your network to do the things you want to do, in the business world. What do you say to the folks who serve under you, who are coming in and say, hey, how do I start this and start getting outside of the veterans community?
Yeah, it is important. And I'm not sure I completely understood that at the point in my career when it really, I should have started networking a lot more earlier than I did, as I was even thinking of retirement. But it is essential. The network is an essential part, I think, of any journey that you're going to take. And it's important to be thoughtful about who's in your network as well. I think, even how you manage your network. I am an introvert. Being in a room like this drains the energy from me. I love it. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy it, but it really drains me. And so when you think about these personal engagements, the kneecap to kneecap kind of experiences that you have, just being thoughtful about them. Listen, guys, and I'm talking to the students now, you will be amazed at just the impact of a personal thank you note to someone that gave 10 minutes of their time to you. They will, right? I mean, these little things of humanity where you are actually seeing the person that is as important in your network as it is growing a list of names. That doesn't get it. It's the personal connection that you are creating. There may be nothing that you can do for anybody, but just, you don't know, even as a student, the energy that people like us get from talking to you, the encouragement that you give us about our future. And so that would be my thought, Rodney, about just, as you're building your network, maintaining your network, that's work. That's part of the journey, because you never know when you're going to reach back into that network and say, hey, I met you at GlobalMindED. I remember that you were in this line of work. You sat on a panel. What should I do about this next job? He'll answer it, because that's what we do. We take care of each other. So, but it is one of these things that I just encourage you to be thoughtful about. Nobody taught me that. I wish they had earlier, because it is, part of what you're doing when you're cultivating your professional career. It's really important.
And that's the value of GlobalMindED. So big plug for GlobalMindED there. Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. The combination of what you know and who you know is extremely important. They run in tandem. So when you develop credibility by executing against whatever value proposition that you're bringing to the table, that gives you the initial credibility. How you leverage that with individuals that can be a network that can help you continue to make that contribution. Don't ever lose sight that you've always got to deliver. You've always got to deliver. Being able to deliver for a time period and then developing a network that you will rely upon to support you is not going to work. That combination won't work. Your commitment to execution starts with you. What you deliver will make a determination as to how receptive a network will be. And once you continue to deliver, you will be surprised as how that network will begin to reach out to you to support you in your efforts and recognize you for what you do. Take time to recognize your network as well.
Yeah. No, please. Yeah, no.
One more quick thought about this, and it is to say that your professional reputation has started. It has already begun. And it doesn't happen by chance. It doesn't happen, like it can, if that's the way you want to do it. I wouldn't do it that way. Right? So be thoughtful about the professional reputation that you want to have. And then curate that through your network, through, what you post on social media, all of those things, right? Be thoughtful and deliberate about the professional reputation that you want to have, because it has already started. And I see people kind of wandering into it, and then they look back and go, crap, that's not really what I intended. Be intentional.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Rich. Go ahead.
It's so true. I'm just going to some degree, repeat what's just been said by the last two, very, very sharp observations. It's already started. Your reputation's already started. And just to break that down, I remember high school and college, and I remember a lot of my peers. And when they reach out now, or when I see them reaching out to each other, I'm like, I remember that guy. Isn't that the one who got us all in trouble that one time? Or isn't that the guy who every weekend was out party? Or I remember that person. We had a group together, and they were extremely helpful. We were in a study group together, and they always had something. They always brought something to the table. They were always helpful. They got good grades. They studied hard. They took it seriously. So when they say that your networking has already started, the people your peers in school, some of them are going to be CEOs of great companies and people that you may want to reach out to later in life. But how will they remember you? Will they remember you as someone who helped them along the way, or who they saw helping others, or who took school very seriously, and or the other end of that spectrum? So just to, put my description on what's already been so well said, it's already started. They're absolutely right.
Yeah. We're going to go to questions. One lightning round, quick. Best piece of financial advice you ever received? 30 seconds, each of you. I'll start with you, Mike.
The best piece of advice I ever got was invest in yourself. Think about what you want to be and how you're going to get there. And it's not a financial recommendation. It really is the psychological impact that you want to start with and how you begin to make a difference. And if you do that, you will enjoy some financial independence associated with what you're bringing to the society.
Lori.
Think long term, just start, and it's about ownership, right? Own something, a stock, an investment portfolio. There's so many good apps out there. I for fun have an Acorns app, $5, and then forget about it. Think long term, but invest. To Mike's point, that's your money investing in you. Just get started.
Rich?
Sounds like we all spoke to the same person. Got our advice from the same person. Yeah, absolutely. Tortoise in the hare. I mean, time is so much on your side right now. Invest early, own something. Most of these, so the two pieces of advice that I share is just that. Invest early. Time is on your side. Put the money away. Forget about it. And the other thing is most get-rich quick schemes don't work. There's an old expression, a fool and his money are soon parted. So first is to make money. The next thing is protect it. Don't make money, then you have money, you become a target. People will come after you. Hey, invest in this, invest in that, invest in this. Be thoughtful.
Awesome. All right, we're going to get some questions from some of our students, and there's a hand right there. I will also just say on the entrepreneurial side of things, and I was in corporate for 17 years and started a business and then started GlobalMindED, and I have never worked so hard as with GlobalMindED. So, and my own business. So I think, like my husband joked a few weeks ago, he goes, "Oh, it's Friday night, welcome home. Only 2 working days until Monday." And I was like, yep. So I just want to make sure when you said some people think, oh, start a business, you're going to have all these different things. It is hard, and you've got to be really willing to work hard. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, say it, where you're from.
Yeah, so my name is Riley Tinkham, and I'm a student at MSU Denver in a graduate program for social work. And something that, yes, thank you. And so something I was thinking of during this conversation, there was a lot of discussion about investments in the stock market and housing. I believe, Rodney, you listed off 7 things that can help someone become a millionaire, and I think it was 5 of those, at least 4 of those involved investing in the stock markets or housing. And I've just noticed that, especially like over the past 15 years, the stock market's grown at an exponential rate. Housing is more expensive than it's ever been. And I'm just curious what you think about the sustainability of those 2 avenues for building wealth over the next 30 or 40 years. And if that past performance can guarantee that future result, or what you think about that.
Good question. Who wants to take that?
I'll start because I'm Morgan Stanley guy. So you're absolutely right. The thing is, what is your time horizon? So I have been in the market, so I will date myself, 39 years in financial services. I know, it looks so young, right? And in that time, I have seen all sorts of gyrations of the market, plummeting, I've been through, I don't know. So I entered the market during the greatest one-day drop since 1929. Back in October of 1987, and I've seen multiple greater than 20% declines in the market. Now, that being said, where we are today is much further than price-wise, valuations-wise, than what it was when I entered this industry in 1987. So it really depends on your time horizon, and even for, say, real estate, rental income. We saw the great real estate crash of 2008 and what happened as a result of that. If you are invested in good places, meaning good companies, good communities where you own your real estate, over time, historically, yes, depending on how long your time horizon is, 15, 20 years, you will end up probably ahead. But if your time horizon is, I want to make money in 2 years, you're probably right. Stock market's not probably for you right now. If that's where you want to receive your return and exit out of that investment in 2 years, that's probably not where you want to be.
Next question. Okay.
Hi, my name is Ashlyn Johnson. I'm from Colorado State University, and I'm a neuroscience major. You had said that capital gains is one of the 7 forms of, like, the most common 7 forms of income, and you had mentioned that applying capital gains is very important. I was wondering if you guys could talk about what that is, how to get it, and how to apply it as, like, a young person starting.
Capital gains, anyone? Mike, you know capital gains.
Let me take a different approach to, because I think that's just a component of how to begin to think of investing, right? And I'll give you an example. There are tribes that are building significant liquidity and wealth for their children, and they're developing what are called miners' trusts. And depending on the age of that individual, financial institutions are giving them strategic advice on how to grow their wealth and yet build a downside scenario. So as the older you get in this glide path to obtaining the access to the capital that's being put aside, that either you're doing it on your own or someone is doing it on your behalf, the more balanced and conservative that should be and give you the opportunity to make changes when you have access to that capital. So if you're at an early age, a newborn child in this kind of a scenario, there has a significant greater risk profile, heavily weighted into equities versus bonds. If you're invested in bonds, it'll never keep up with the rate of inflation if that is the only asset class that you have. That's why it's important to think about, number one, your risk tolerance when you want to access that capital and how you want to diversify your investments to meet your long-term goal. And it's always the balance among principal protection, growth in the from a rate of return perspective, and then access to the from a liquidity perspective. Kind of balance all of those ingredients. And then begin to make investment choices based on that.
And one of our colleagues back here texted me an important point, which is we don't do a lot of financial literacy in K-12, and a lot of states are now starting to mandate that so that we can have as our basic structure a lens to understand half the things you're talking about, because I'm not even familiar with some of the things that are being discussed and some of the terms. So I think we just all need to have that. And right now, a lot of it for us is going to have to be a lot of self-learning because it's not institutional. Okay, another student, another question. There's right here. Okay.
Hello, my name's Aspen. I'm from the Community College of Aurora. Hi. So my question is a little bit more, I guess, kind of philosophical in a way, right? When we talk about like financial freedom and economic mobility, and in idea, right, like talking about it and aspiring to that, it sounds really cool, and we all want that, right? But do you think that there is an issue with wanting that so much that now you're doing things that are causing more harm than good? There is a very huge trend that I'm noticing where people are so desperate to have this that they're willing to destroy everything in their path to achieve it.
And you just perfectly defined financial
Great
nihilism.
question.
That's literally what financial nihilism is. It is wanting to achieve, we all want to achieve financial freedom, economic mobility, but doing it at the cost of long-term financial freedom and economic mobility by investing in very speculative things because you think it's going to happen faster. I think it was Richard, you said about, taking, slow and steady. And that's unfortunately, unfortunately, how wealth is built. It's not built overnight. So many people are looking at influencers today, YouTube. Yep. So, the over 60% of Gen Z gets their financial advice from YouTube, according to an Intuit study. I love YouTube. I watch YouTube. I host a podcast that's on YouTube. But when I go to financial advice, I go to a financial professional. And I know you may say, well, I'm young and it's not accessible. There are still financial sites that, to Carol's point about financial education, where you can go. Both public sites like the FDIC. The FDIC, Federal Depository Insurance Corporation, has a site called Money Smart, where you can learn all about managing money. I highly recommend it. Financial institutions also have financial education on their site. And often they have access to where you can at least talk to somebody. Virtually, a lot of times. But at least you know that it's from, the source is not from someone waving around bands of money on YouTube and saying, I did it, and here's how you're going to do it.
I also like YouTube, whatever, and all that. And on occasion we'll look at some. The other day on Instagram, I saw a brownie recipe. Okay, making a brownie with no flour, no sugar. I tried it. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. It cost me 2 eggs, a couple bananas, and some yogurt. I'll recover, right? What I did not do from that Instagram, article, someone waving the bands, is invest my life savings, right? That you might not recover from. I just want to, if slow and steady, I believe is the way to go. If you want to do something speculative, take a sum of money that you won't miss, that you will recover from, a small amount. Invest with it, have fun with it, play with it. If you're successful, it allows you on weekends to tell your buddies how smart you are, if that's what you want to do. But as far as your life plan, the slow and steady is the way to go.
All right. Well, I think you want to just do one
I was
more
just gonna say,
minute of a wrap.
But you were probably going to do the same thing. Please give our panel a round of applause.